it's amazing how people tend to confuse these two terms.
Right.
Soundproofing versus sound diffusion, sometimes called sound damping. Although sound damping is a whole different deal, isn't it? Soundproofing. All right, you got to remember there are two things that we're trying to deal with a home voiceover studio. One is trying to prevent sound from interfering, from the outside, from transmitting into your booth and into your microphone. You want to be able to isolate yourself best you can. Soundproofing in a home studio is literally impossible. You cannot, unless you put yourself in like a, what do they call it? A sensory deprivation chamber. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. It's extremely expensive. You can buy, a soundproof booth, which, and if you know anything about them, they're anything but. They're designed as much for someone to keep the noise from getting out as it is from getting in, and the acoustics in them can sometimes be kind of funky.
Yeah.
But for the most part, very difficult to try and create a really quiet space, which is why, unless you have a booth or something like that where you can isolate yourself the best, we recommend using a closet, and a closet full of clothes, because those work really, really well, because clothes are a great diffuser of audio. So don't confuse the terms soundproofing and sound diffusion. A lot of people are saying, I have to soundproof my booth by putting all sorts of foam in it. It's not happening. That does not do anything to prevent sound from coming in. You want to elucidate on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, there's also, when we're talking about diffusion, you sort of have two other things. You have absorption, or also known as damping, and you have diffusion. So in that world, you have two different ways to deal with the sound inside the booth. You can either absorb it, which is damping, and you can also diffuse it, which is scattering it. So some find that a combination of those two works really well. I have found that in a really small booth, it's very difficult to get effective diffusion to work really, really well. So generally in really small booths, we focus on absorption. So that means covering the walls with materials and making sure that the materials are dense enough or thick enough to control all of the audio frequencies. That's what diffusion and absorption can do. If you want a more lively sort of open sound, diffusion will help that because it'll keep the sound from getting sucked away from you so quickly. You got to be really careful about using diffusion in those really small spaces. So yeah, make sure you don't get those confused. You'll see online soundproof foam, and that's a total misnomer.
Soundproof foam?
There's actually, I think there's a website, soundprooffoam.com, actually.
Pay no attention to those people. They do not know what they're talking about.
Charlatans.
Yes. Soundproof foam. Unbelievable. It's the sound. Acoustics are 95% of the quality of your audio. And we've been discussing that for the 5 years that you and I have been doing this show.
Yeah.
And again, you're trying to prevent the transmission of sound into your recording space, and you're trying to prevent the sound that you are producing from bouncing around and creating an echo effect.
One question that's come up over and over for me is actually, what booth should I get? And they're like, do I need the double wall whisper room? Do I need the single wall whisper room? Or so on and so forth. And the thing is, we as tech guys or designers, we can't answer that question without hearing what's going on in the room to begin with. So what I've been telling people is set your microphone up in the room where you're going to be recording, do an actual recording, forget the fact that it sounds echoey and, whatever, and get a recording of the actual environment with your voice. Just noise is not noise. It's not noise is noise is noise. You have to know what frequencies the noise are and how loud the noise is, because it's not all the same. And some of it's very, very hard to stop, and some of it's very, very easy. It's very easy to stop the noise from a computer fan. That's just a very soft sound, and if you block that with a sound blanket, you can probably get rid of it almost entirely.
Yeah. Or move the computer as far away from the microphone as is physically possible.
Yeah, that's always very helpful. But other things are not nearly as easy to stop, like the passing of a dump truck or a helicopter flying over. Those are entirely different animals. So we always have to know the full picture. So I recommend recording some audio of the space you're going to be in and at different times of day, so we can figure out what the heck's going on. And then we can recommend a product that's going to work, or hopefully work well enough for you.